Hello, good afternoon. Once again, welcome everybody. This is our third Media Innovation Circle, and we are very pleased to have Professor Eva Brooks as keynote speaker. I will just make a small introduction of Professor Eva and her research activity. Professor Eva is a professor in IT-based design, learning and innovation at the Department of Culture and Learning, Aalborg University in Denmark. She is also director of the research laboratory Xlab, Design, Learning and Innovation. Professor Eva research has a design focus on social interaction and the use and development of digital technology and their implications for play and learning. On her research, Professor Eva includes an innovation dimension where she applies a design-oriented approach to co-creative processes with children in several projects related with children's participation, play, computational thinking, digital play, and also digital game-based interactions, and I believe digital game-based learning. Currently, a research also has a focus on teachers' professional digital competences grounded in creative workshops where the learning is participative, collaborative, and peer-oriented. Professor Eva Brooks, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience with us. So please feel free to start whenever you want to.
Thanks a lot for letting me be here. I'm very proud and very nice to be here, so to speak. And I share my screen like this. And today it's the midsummer in Sweden. I'm in Denmark, but I'm a Swedish, so I just wanted to share our tradition where we used to dance around this strange thing here and so on. But today I'm here and I'm very happy for that. So I will talk about this designing for play with physical and digital media. And I will start with introducing our lab, which is the hub for the research activities that we are doing. I will give some background to the research shortly, and then I will give some empirical examples. And finally, I will conclude and give some design guidelines based on the findings that we have from our research. Yeah. So, okay. So our Xlab, which is hosted by the Department of Culture and Learning at Aalborg University, is a kind of, we call it a digital playground. We try to keep, the newest or almost new technology there, different kinds of technologies for both students and our colleagues to play around with, and also that we work together with schools and preschools and health organizations to also come and test and work together with us. So we have several projects included in the lab, and we offer workshops that include technologies and seminars. And we are always looking for partnerships and collaborations to share knowledge and to develop projects together. And in particular in the lab, we focus on a playful learning approach to design and work with workshops methods and also different design methods, very much hands-on and practice-oriented. So the lab is also mobile. So we have our bags or that we bring with us out to the schools and to the people we are collaborating with. And we are a crowd of around 14 people, from professors to PhD students and also master students, of course. And we Xlab is used as an education hub as well, where students come in and work with their projects and do presentations in the lab. They use our lab for doing idea generation and testing and evaluation of their projects. And as well as we invite students to be part of our ongoing research as well. And it's of course a research hub where we work with, here we see a colleague of mine, Anders, exploring virtual reality to be used in education of healthcare assistants. Here we work with teachers and pedagogues regarding how to work with computational thinking with children. And here we have children in our lab in one of the projects. It's when we were working with the digital game-based learning. So at the moment we have two focuses of our research, and it's in the education sector and also in the health technology sector, where we work with design, learning and innovation very broadly. And as I mentioned, we also work with collaboration. And here we have our colleague from Aalborg University, Christina Sylla, who visited us, and it's a few years ago with her project at that time. And we also disseminate, so we have open seminars. We have our conference, yearly conference together with European Alliance of Innovation. It's called the International Conference on Design, Learning and Innovation. And this year it will be online with Professor Wendy Keybright as a keynote speaker. And we also then publish a book every year after that conference with the accepted papers. And we are very proud that now in the middle of July, we will, our first, what we call Xlab book will be published by Routledge, and it's called Digital Learning and Collaborative Practices, Lessons Learned from Inclusive and Empowering Participation with Emerging Technologies. So that will come now in July. Yes. Oh. Sorry, this was a bit strange. So, as I mentioned before, then we have playfulness as one of the approaches to what we are doing in the lab, and playful creativity, where we think of creativity and playful learning as mediated by artifacts, where the artifacts play a crucial role in mediating this learning or play experiences for the children. And we see then that creativity and playful learning goes hand in hand or along with the generation of new knowledge, so to speak. Yeah. So we can say that over the years then, the recent years, one could say, that our research showed that the different interactions emerged between children when they worked with either analog toys like Lego or other creative material, and when they were interacting with their tablets. So they were less likely to interact and have conversations when they were interacting with the tablet. They had it in their laps and were more solitarily focused on the screen. Whereas when they interacted with the toys or creative material, they shared their experiences, they put attention to each other, what they were doing, and helped each other, and so on, and negotiated, and so on. So we took that knowledge into consideration when we reflected upon how we should focus or develop our work in our lab. And then we came to that we wanted to work with design and play. We wanted to have the designerly approach because we very much believe in that while creating something, you always also initiate or promote creativity. And with play, we were, interested in the openness and not so goal-oriented activities that play offers. So one could think that design and play does not go so well together, because design has an outcome, whereas play not necessarily has an outcome. But they share some similarities with each other, because both promote curiosity and exploration. And design, it leads typically to a concrete solution for a specific situation. And when play then is seen as open-ended and very much promote imagination when people interact with the world. And these things we wanted to make use of. And also, as a designer, you are interested in asking the question how, in order to get to the intended solution. And this goes hand in hand with what a player asks, because the question, what if? Not only what is, but what could be. So both design and play then reflect a wonder about the creation of a possible future. And that was what we wanted to create conditions for in our lab. And we have done that in 3 different projects that have been going on over the last, 4 years, one could say, or 5 maybe, where we have worked in one project with children and robotics, where we included imagination and creativity in the children's work with programming robots to generate interest in learning of programming. And we used classical fairy tales like the H.C. Andersen classical narratives, but also Grimm's version of Little Red Riding Hood, for instance. And we use these fairy tales as a frame because we knew that the children, they know these fairy tales, and we wanted to, take our starting point in what children already knew to have that as a basis for what they could learn through this. And also that we wanted to, that programming should be embraced by imaginative and emotional interactions in order to spur and make the programming activity more interesting, we thought. Another project we worked with it is the digital game-based learning project, where we created creativity workshops. And we had 2 different setups there. In one setup, we worked with game development using only creative material. And in the other setups, we used creative material for the children to create a digital game, which they then should make a short video, a stop-motion video of. And in both the robotic project and in this project, the children were divided into teams, into groups, around 4 or 5 children in each group. And they were then equipped with loads of creative material. And in one case, then they also worked with an iPad in order to make a stop-motion video of their games. And we did these 2 different setups just to see what happens when the technology is involved and when the technology isn't involved, so to speak. Yeah. I talk a bit rushed here, so I hope I don't miss too many details, but you can always ask me afterwards. And I should also say that when they worked with the in the robotics, they had different fairy tales, the different groups. And in the digital game-based learning, we gave them themes to work with. It could be the woods, the city, underwater, the desert, and so on. So they had a focus. And I come to how we designed the session in a minute as well. And the other project, we worked together with Utzon Design Center, which is, so we worked with in Aalborg, which is, Utzon who designed the Sydney Opera House, for instance. He's from Aalborg, and there is a design center around his work. And there we created sessions with children where they should play with architecture. And we had two different workshops with them. One was where they worked with different scales, so they should also learn mathematics, because architecture is also about mathematics. So they should design build a tower with Lego. And this tower should be so stable that it shouldn't fall apart and so on. So they had to take into the consideration both the height and the width and so on. When they have designed this, they should scan it into to the computer, so that they could further work and develop their tower in Minecraft, and then they could experience their tower in virtual reality. So from the physical to the virtual, one could say. The other setup was only analog, where they should build a house. And they started with building it as a module with small cubes, where they, in this house, there were different rooms, bedroom, toilet, kitchen, living room, 4 different rooms. And they worked in 4 groups, and they should, each group, create each of these rooms, which they then should put together as a house. So they worked individually, but also collectively. And when they have created their small-scale room of this house, they put together cardboard boxes and should, what would you say, create the small model into a full-size model. And that's where the challenge of building together these rooms came. And this way of working with scales and models and so on, we also wanted to develop into a digital format. So there we also collaborated with students from mediology, for instance, who then should develop this as a virtual opportunity for the kids. These were the 3 different projects that we worked with in the lab. And the common ground for this project was what activities develop when children design, create, and build in play-responsive environment, digital or analog. And how does the learning environment, including the artifacts, respond to children's actions and interactions? So these workshops then, they were captured by video, and we had observer notes and so on. And the workstations were also equipped with each one video camera. So we had loads of data to work with. And the workshops were designed so that there were first an introduction where we establish a framework and a climate for the workshop. And then there was a longer period of what we call exploratory activities, when the children could use both the digital and the analog tools to work with the topic they should work with, if it was this with the fairy tales or with the games or with the scales. And then finally, what we call the transformative activity, which is very interesting, and that's when the children present for each other what they have done. So they need to put words into what they have been doing, and thereby they really, show it, have the opportunity to make it not only to an experience that we do and forget, but when they talk about it, they also have a learning opportunity there. So the results then, I summarize this between the different case studies that I have shown for you. And one of the results is what we call acts of making and breaking. And that is that when these design sessions or the workshops where they worked with both the creative and the digital material, they created something. For instance, they designed a certain way for the Osobot robot to be the old man in one of H.C. Andersen's fairy tales. And then they were not satisfied with this. They were not satisfied with the scene they had built, or they were not satisfied with the way the robot or the old man moved through the fairy tale. So they had to discuss and negotiate how this should be. So they were making and breaking up and making and breaking up, just like an analytical process when we are analyzing data, for instance. That is what is meant by this making and breaking, recursive and reflective period. So the children, they worked in co-creative. They collaborated in this design process in the workshops, and the setup fostered exploration, curiosity, and children's funds of knowledge, which was very important, both in the fairy tales and the programming where they knew the fairy tales, and also in the game design where they didn't know exactly the themes maybe, but they knew what a game was, and that was what inspired them very much. And furthermore, the mediation of the materials connected then explorative acts closely to acts of making and breaking. And that maybe comes. And this was characterized by being open to the existing ideas, what they should do, we should create a game that has focus on the desert, and what is included in what is in a desert and so on. But there also was a willingness to imagine ways in which things could be done differently. So they considered what if. So what if we make a palm tree in the jungle with no lianas, because it's so hard to make lianas in clay, so we just skip them. No, it's not possible, because then it's not a palm tree anymore, and so on. And these kind of discussions, what if we do like this? That could work and that couldn't work, and so on. So there were loads of negotiation included in that. So the making and breaking process, as I said, correspond to a design process. So they proceeded through these iterative cycles of designing and implementing ideas. And it was also an opportunity to promote these explorative, but also critical and playful actions. And through these negotiations and making and breaking, it was also clear that they could make their own choices they were not bound of the directions, or what you say, the instructions we had given them, but they made their own choices and decisions, and they found ways of dealing with what they already know and their creative imagination of what could be. And here we have some examples of this, where we could see that to the right there is a group. They are exploring possible game designs, and they started with exploring what they knew about board games, and how can we use this to make a good digital game. So here you can see they had different, they made sketches, all of them, and then they, through the process, decided on what they should do. And it was also crucial that we had these time slots, so that they were not free to work forever, but there was a limitation of time which we made them aware of, so that they could proceed and not get stuck in the process. And we of course worked as to facilitate them in that as well when needed. And here we see a coding and the way that the old man in the H.C. Andersen's fairy tale, what the old man does is always right. And this is a fairy tale about an old man who should go to the market and sell his horse. And he waves farewell to his wife and walk away. And on his way, he meets other farmers who sells eggs, and they sell a cow and a hen and so on. And it ends up when the old man walks this road and meet these people, that he comes back with a bag of rotten apples. And but his wife doesn't blame him for that. She always thinks that what he does is right. But to come to this way of representing this fairy tale was not an easy task, because some were involved in coding, some were involved in building the scenery and so on. And there is one, many times it was the boys who said that I do the coding, and the girls who took care of the creative things. And in one group there was this moment where a boy was coding, and he probably found it very interesting when the girl was working with the foam clay to create these different things. And he said, let me try. And he got this foam clay in his hands, and he said, wow, you can continue coding. I need to build with this. So it really, it was surprising, and it was very nice. Okay, and here we have this making and breaking in the Utzon project. And here it primarily happened with the physical Lego building that they negotiated and so on. When it came into the Minecraft, you can see the two boys sitting here, but you see the boy to the left, he is a little bit behind and they don't negotiate. The one who has the keyboard is doing the building and exploring a bit what happens if I build it too high and so on. But there is not so much further joint development took place in the Minecraft, which correspond to our previous research then with the tablets. And also what we call acts of prototyping was the material interaction was also something that was important in this in the children's making. And these material interactions, it opened up for considering the crafting of the ideas. Like I said before, for instance, it's hard to create the palm trees and lianas to get stuck into the tree and not fall off. And it took time to build, if we stick to the jungle, to build tigers, to make tigers. Is it enough if we only have one? No, we need to have two, otherwise our game won't work, yeah? And so on. So it's this material interaction was very much, they could explore the material and also develop their ideas based on what the material offered for opportunities. Let me see. So, yeah, and the material properties, they supported the children in envisioning new designs, I could say. And the children gave attention to details in terms of their aesthetic quality. So how materials have been selected and used to give form and character to their designs. It's a little bit what I said before. And the texture offered a kind of authenticity to their designs. And here we have as an example of this is the jungle here, where I will play the video here, where it is a scenario, what they built, this scenario represented by a tiger hunting a monkey or monkeys, but where we as players, the children's idea was that we as players would think that the tiger would win here. So we make it the other way around. So this is a tiger who fails to catch the monkeys and thereby die. And it is game over for the player who represents the tiger and victory for the player who represents the monkey. And the dead tiger then is represented by a red spot that you can see here. I play the video now. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, I come to the concluding remarks here now. So we suggest then, based on this finding, that the activity of design and play can be understood as a kind of melded interaction, where what-if exploration and prototyping by means then of different kinds of material come together in an experiential making and breaking situation. Furthermore then, that the way in which the children initiated and sustained these imaginative designs and creative adapting and making, that was visible within all the groups. And what we have termed then as melded interactions stimulated their reflection and recursive actions with regard to how design and play supported imaginative and material experiences and manifestations. And in this regard, it was not only the environment and the material resources that offered these experiences, but also the way in which the facilitators stood back and enabled just sufficient space for the children to explore and to break boundaries, to not interfere too early. That's a challenge if you are a teacher. And keeping to this conceptualization then of design and play, we emphasize the ethos of the participants' voices and knowledge to be heard and considered through this material manifestation of their interaction with each other and with the resources at hand. So, based on this, I have formulated a few design guidelines then, if we should design, if it is applications or games or what to the children, or digital environments. we should design for a shared positioning and ownership. If we go to the application, the apps that are available for young children today, they seldom offer possibilities for collaboration. We know that children help each other. While one is playing, they can say, you can make this and that and so on. But they are seldom designed to actually support collaboration. And that is not only through our research, that is also why some schools and so have contacted us to say that, could you do anything about that? We really miss some kind of sandbox game for young children. So design for open-ended, imaginary, and problem solving. So both design and play digital situations, inviting the participants to create, share, reflect, negotiate, and so on. And design for interruptible situations. But because what we could see in when the children only had the creative material was that they interrupted their process many times by just taking a step back and discussing and so on. Whereas when they were involved in Minecraft or in doing stop motion videos, they were very focused on not being interrupted, and the conversations and the sharing stopped in a way, or at least became limited. And design for giving sense to digital objects and actions. And that relates to this, that in the fairy tales and the programming activities, as well as in the robotics, the children gave life to the different objects or to the different characters and open up for imaginary situations. So that is what is meant by this number 4. And this design for porous boundaries between digital play and social pretend play situations, that both is possible. And design for children's funds of knowledge. That is the final one. So, and this is the conference. And this is thank you. So that was it. I was a bit rushed maybe.
Thank you.
We can discuss now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eva, for this wonderful and interesting presentation. Now I will now open to questions from our audience. Do you have any questions? Pedro Bessa raised his hand. Pedro, please.
Hello, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and the work and research that we have done, and congratulate you regarding your projects. I think they are very interesting. The results and the approach that you showed are similar to research projects that we are working here in DigiMedia. The project is the Gamers for Nature, where we try to engage students between 15 and 20 years old to create digital games for mobile to create awareness regarding the environment and protecting the species. Our idea for the project is to somehow to engage the students to create the games where they usually play on the daily basis, but to create their own games based on a theme. But since we try to create some formal knowledge, we develop a set of tools of information that help them to to know a little more about the formal elements of a game, how to create a narrative, and how to develop their game. Regarding your projects, did the children have any difficulty, or did you need to help them to create a story, to create the game? Did you need to develop any kind of content? And I'd like to invite myself to visit the Xlab because yeah, I think the project that you showed are excellent. So I try to send an email to see if it's possible to visit and to share your experience.
Thank you, Pedro. It's a very good and relevant question, because I can understand that I didn't go into that. Yes, they had tools to develop the storyline. They were introduced to how you build up a story in a traditional way, and then they had should create a storyboard with what the topic should be, which characters, which objects, and so on. So they they should spend, I don't remember how much time, but that was how it started. It was when they had the storyboard finished that they started with the actual making and creation of the game.
Thank you, Eva. Joaquin also has a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Eva, for your presentation. And I'd like to ask 3 interlinked questions, if I may. First one is like, regarding the pandemic, which we live in, unfortunately, how are you coping with doing the workshops? Are you still doing them? What kind of measures are you taking, and so on and so forth? And I don't know if you want me to ask the other 2 questions, or if you want to answer already.
I could just answer this question because it influenced it a lot, and it has been a break in the activities for for over a year actually.
Yes, yeah. Yes. Same here. I'm doing a PhD and I'm needing to do some workshops, but I'm kind of with my hands tied. Continuing with this question, kind of, I don't know if you ever did some work with smaller children, preschool children, so up to 6 years old, and if you have, how did you manage to measure their reactions in a way, through questionnaires? What kind of instruments you use? And at the same time, what about mixed workshops, so children and parents or caretakers?
Yeah, okay. So regarding the yes, we work with this with children 3 to 5 years old as well. Not the game design, but with the robotics, with different kind of robots, both with the Bluebot, Beebot, and Autobots and so on. And we work only qualitatively, and in the analysis we used. I thought that this question could come up. So Edwards and Bird, and there they have a framework for what they call digital play, where you could look at the epistemic digital play and the ludic play, and that we used as an analytical tool in that project. Yes, and then. Yes, and when we have worked with these workshops in schools or in preschools, the teachers are always with us and taking part in the workshop together with the children. We have also had like Scratch Junior workshops with 5-year-olds together with the teachers who so that they learn and together with the children. But we also have worked with only teachers, but we do the same kind of workshops, really. So they also can have fun together and feel more relaxed to this learning of the digitization. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquim. Catarina Lely has also a question. Go ahead, Catarina.
Thank you, Eva, for your presentation. I'm delighted that you were able to join us. My question is related to something that is pre-project and has to do with the ethics process that you have to go through, because you're doing a lot of stuff with children, and this ways of making in which there's such an intense interaction with children can be quite demanding from an ethical point of view. So I don't know if if you guys have to follow a different process ethics-wise, and if it depends on the country where you are. But I would like you to go over it, roughly. How do you go through it before you engage with children? Is it something like you have to repeat every time, or is it just a generic project kind of application? You could talk a little bit about it.
Yes, like you say, it's very important, and it's a thorough process which takes some time, because first we have to have the written consent from the parents or guardians, and that is not just to get the consent. It's really important how you formulate all this, what should be included in, how you deal with why are you doing this, what should you use the results for, how long should you keep the data, and so on. And then, so that is on beforehand, one could say. And then during the session, it's also, we always, ask the children if they still wanted to continue. They had their teachers with them who knew them better than we did. So they could also, keep an eye on that everything was okay. And we told them that whenever they feel that I don't want to do this anymore, they can go to us or to the teacher, and they don't need to explain why. They just need to say that I take a break now, or I don't want to participate here any longer. Okay. So that was the work during the workshop, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
But as you say, it's very important, and we have the regulations nowadays. So the universities, we all the paperwork needs to be approved by our the department that take care of these legal questions and so on.
Is it like a long process? Do you have to go through a long process because it involves children? Do you feel like it's a way more demanding as if it were, for example, with the elderly, or it would be roughly the same?
No, that would probably be the same. Okay. If I don't know, but we have an internal approval of it. So it's a kind of long procedure, but when I talk to my English colleagues in the UK, it seems that it takes longer time there, and it's more, I don't know in what ways, but it's legally correct, but it's and it takes some time, but it's not, as long as you have planned for it on beforehand, it's quite, going through quite well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's why Katarina was asking, because she's working in England, so she knows she took a lot of time there.
Yeah, we end up giving up whenever it involves children. We have to give up because it's a never-ending process.
Yeah.
However,
So
in
it's
Portugal
really
is
exciting to see that there's some people doing some work with children. It won't happen in the UK.
okay, okay.
Yeah, and so I have understood it too. Yes. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katarina. Eva, I have a question for you too. I was interested especially in that scenario where the children build a structure with foam, I believe, and cardboard boxes, and then they started working or implementing that structure in Minecraft. Well, Minecraft does not respect physics or gravity because you can build 300 blocks bridge without having to make any structure to give stability to that bridge. This was very interesting because once we put them in the game, as you have said, they start playing the game or enjoying the game, and they end the collaboration and discussion process. What I would like to ask you is, were the children aware when they were invited to work on the physical materials that they were going to implement that structure on the Minecraft environment? Or that was kind of an additional information that was kept for later, so they wouldn't just rush the construction process just as they were eager to step into the game environment?
No, they were informed about the whole process on beforehand, that I should build and then scan it, and then in the VR. So yes, as it was. So I didn't experience that they rushed, but one could experience that when they were allowed to go into start the scanning and so on, they were all, yes, finally, in a way. So they were waiting for it, but they were very seriously building during the time they should build, but they were absolutely more thrilled when they should start with the digital version of it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't know if Mónica has one last remark. She
No,
can
I would
hand.
just like to thank Eva for this wonderful presentation, for being able to share all your experience and knowledge with us. As Nelson was telling you before the start of the session, in Portugal, somehow we have abandoned research with children. Now we know why, because of what Katarina said, and you said there's too much. Elderly people can sign their own informed consents, but
Very
children, we need to
true.
ask their parents, their teachers, their school directors, the minister, whatever. So it's difficult to make research with children. So it was a very, very interesting approach that you were able to share here with us, and an approach that introduces the physical artifacts, the way children can work with materials and knowledge they already have, the one you have called funds of knowledge, and the new the digital environmental that children are always eager to get into. So it was a wonderful connection between the two environments. So on behalf of DigiMedia, I would like to thank you.